The only thing worse than a crisis is a wasted crisis. You are listening to Relationship Renegade, the show that brings hard truths and realities about relationships. What is up, Pod Squad? I am your host, Jameson Mercier, licensed clinical social worker and doctor of marriage and family therapy. Thank you for joining me for another installment of Relationship Renegade. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you are blessed. If you're listening to this, I know you're blessed. The unfortunate thing is sometimes we ourselves fail to recognize it. And so I just want to remind you that whatever your situation is right now, you are indeed blessed. And that's important to remember, especially in the midst of all that we have going on. And we're going to get into that a little bit in this episode. But first, I want to just thank you all for continuing to show up week after week for these 2 episodes that we drop a week. One here, myself, and then on the weekend edition with my homegirl, Mia. Y'all please show her some love on those weekend edition episodes. Now, as far as today's show is concerned, so I try not to blab too much. I try not to run off on these tangents too much. And you guys do remind me, my wife reminds me, so I'm gonna be as succinct as possible. All right, y'all can let me know how successful or unsuccessful I was at that. Today's episode, we talk about relationships here at Relationship Renegade. And sometimes these relationships focus on the relationship that we have with other people. And then there are times when the relationship is about the relationship we have with ourselves. And so today we're focusing more on, so it falls under that umbrella of relationships with ourselves. The subject matter, the topic for today's show, the title, Don't Waste the Crisis. It really, and I know a lot of people have been talking about not wasting the crisis. You come across different posts where people are just telling you, take advantage of this time and do this and do that. And you know what? If that's your cup of tea, great. If you're someone who's encouraging people to figure out how to come back bigger and better post-corona, financially or in their business, listen, I am all for that. That is awesome. I wish you all the best in that. But if you're hearing that and you feel like, it's just not quite clicking for me because I got some other stuff that's going on, that's what today's show is about. All right, because a lot of us are in situations that we're not going to be able to get out of. We're not going to be able to leverage the crisis unless we first figure out those things, right? And one of the key things is this relationship with ourself, okay? And so we're going to chat a little bit about that today. Hopefully, you're going to pick up some nuggets, and then I'm just going to cut you loose, and you do with it what you want. All right. The inspiration for this show came from an article I was reading where a CEO, and I want to say this is the Ford CEO. They're, at the time of this recording, they're going through some transitions, and I think it's the incoming CEO. All right. Y'all let me know if I'm right or wrong. But he's quoted as having said, "The only thing worse than a crisis is a wasted crisis." The only thing worse than a crisis, right? The only thing worse is a wasted crisis. And so, I had to, when I heard that, or when I read that in the article I was reading, I had to pause a moment, and I said, I get what he's saying, but this thing can be applied so much further, right? Many of us here are in situations that we are not seeing how we can leverage this season, right, with everything that we got going on. And of course, I can understand that. Millions of people are out of work. An article I read just this morning, right? National debt is skyrocketing. Okay, it's insane. And then on top of that, the stock market is just going crazy, bonkers. So I can see how people are like, well, what do you mean, wasting a crisis? So I'm gonna try to make sense of what I'm thinking here. But y'all know, as we do here, sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's just me causing more confusion. But hey, y'all bear with me. Now, like I said, financial crisis is one thing, right? This is not that talk, although there are some similarities, and so maybe we'll reference that in this short chat. But the crisis with yourself, okay, that relationship that you have with yourself, how are you doing? How are you dealing with that churn, right? I like to call it that churn, that turmoil that's going on the inside. What's been happening for you? Because we're going on, 7 months maybe since this thing really kicked off. And many people thought that things would be much, much different by this point. And that's the struggle, right? Where you're being confronted with the fact that things do not look like they're going to change for the better anytime soon. We did a similar show a few weeks ago where we talked about the silver lining in coronavirus. And so that show would be a nice one to listen in conjunction with this. But what are you doing? What is going on with you in this season? Many of us are being confronted by things about ourselves that is just totally surprising us. And some of you might hear that and you're like, well, hey, if it's you, if it's your thing, why would it be a surprise? But it is a surprise, right? The revelations that some of us are having in this season are surprises. Okay? Because when things are good, right? When times are good, it is easy to overlook some bad things. It's easy to overlook some flaws, right? When you can, just a simple, stupid example. If you're able to go to the gym and run and work out, yeah, you can eat more than you should, drink more than you should, because you just go to the gym, put in some extra days and some extra reps, do a little more cardio, and you'll balance it out. Okay. Similarly, financially, right? When we're talking about not wasting the crisis, how are you taking advantage of it? The word leverage comes to mind, right? And you often will hear people say, how are you leveraging this crisis? How are you capitalizing on what's happening now? I've heard it all, right? Going back to the Great Depression, a lot of people made their wealth post the Great Depression. Okay, they were positioned to do that. And so if we can apply this to the relationship you have with yourself, okay, are you over leveraged? Okay, so back to the same simple, stupid example. You're not able to go to the gym now, right? Are you so far gone that you can't bounce back? Okay, what are you doing? So, there's a couple quick points that I want to highlight, right? When we notice things about ourselves, right? To follow the same analogy, if we're over leveraged or different issues going on internally, okay, it can really cause some panic to set in. It can cause some fear to set in. Okay, anxiety is real. Trust me. Some of y'all ain't really been able to sleep in weeks, if not months. Okay, I don't mean laying down. I'm talking about having rest. Okay, peace. Y'all, you don't know what that feels like. And I get that. Okay, trust me when I tell you I get that. I was just telling my wife recently, in all honesty, we've been fortunate to, in the way that COVID has affected our family. We feel some things, but we are sheltered from some. I'm not bragging. I'm just testifying, because I understand how quickly all of that can change. It can change tomorrow, right? But we're fortunate. And so, but it wasn't always like that. I remember in 2008, as a matter of fact, from 2008 to about 2015, okay, that was like my COVID, if you will. That's when I started school. I went back to school. That was when all three of my kids were born in those 7 years, from '08 to 2012, actually. And then 2013 was the year of my bankruptcy. All right. Because I couldn't sell my house fast enough. Couldn't get a job fast enough. And I had to really sit down and buckle down and do some soul searching, if you will. Not even some, what am I talking about? A lot of self introspection. Because I was in a crisis. I was unemployed, and I was a new dad. Okay, new dad, young family, right? So '08 was when it kicked off for me. I got married in '07. Okay, I mean, and just think about this, because some of y'all are in this situation, and if you're not, you know someone who is. And so I know what goes on when you have all this responsibility and you don't know how you're going to meet it. You really begin to ask some questions, or look at yourself in the mirror, or don't look at yourself in the mirror. Okay, because there were days where it was hard for me to look at myself in the mirror. But so I don't even want to say after, but after it started and going through that, it really forced me to take a hard look. And I realized that the worry and the fear and the panic, beyond a certain point, and I guess this is our first point, right? Panicking and worrying does not help. Okay, when you're in a crisis, an internal crisis, this struggle, it does not help. Beyond a certain point, it doesn't make any sense to worry anymore. And I recognize as I say it, it isn't just a switch that you turn off. Okay, that self-criticism does not just stop. We are our biggest critic. We hear that all the time. It doesn't change the fact that beyond a certain point, it makes sense to worry up to a certain point, right? If you got a plane to catch, back when we were on planes, flying around, yeah, you want to. The anxiety that you feel about missing your flight is productive. Don't get me wrong. Okay? That stress about making sure you're there on time is productive. But if you've already missed your flight, how does stress and anxiety and worry serve you? The answer is it does not. Right? And so this is why I encourage people not to panic when they're in a crisis. If the ship's already going down, if the ship is already sunk, you're already there, panicking does not help. Okay? So as you realize these things about you, these revelations you're having about yourself or your relationships, hello, do not panic. Okay? You want to maintain a level head. Because if you can do that, right? If you can eliminate the panic and the anxiety and the fear, even temporarily, you begin to see things differently. Okay? So when I had, back to my story, when I finally confronted, some of the ideas I had and the plans I had and this sense of who I was, and who I felt I should be, right? Because we all do that to ourselves, right? We should be X. We should be at a certain point, okay? Because I'm 25 or I'm 40. I didn't make the top 40s list, whatever list or metric. You gotta check that, okay? And when I finally got to a place where I could check it for myself, then I was able to shift and I was able to pivot. Now, that doesn't mean it happened overnight or instantly, okay? And some of the things that I needed to do for me and my family, I didn't just get up and go do them, okay? It's a process, The day that I went from just being a doctoral student and trying to get all these jobs to delivering sushi, that day I really had to deal with myself.
Hi, we are the Mercier kids. Like what you hear so far?
Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe now.
This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
The day that I decided to deliver newspaper just so I can put some food on the table. Okay, getting up early in the morning. Yes, we still deliver newspaper. There are people who still have subscriptions to newspapers. I can hear y'all wondering, what the hell, newspaper? Yes, there's a whole industry out there of people delivering newspaper. When I found myself looking and having to do those things, I really had to take stock and inventory of what was happening for me. And it was not pretty, okay? But it was necessary. It was necessary. So don't panic, because it's once we stop panicking that we're then able to shift, to zoom out. All right. Now, how can you not waste this crisis? And this is a little tricky. For some, for some it's a little tricky. And for others, it's simple in theory, but the application is where we always get stuck. Okay. So let me just make a quick note about this leveraging the crisis. So financially, that's one thing. And maybe we'll have to have a whole separate conversation on a whole separate episode about finances. We have some really, really weird and jacked up relationships with money. And for many of us, that if we dig deep enough, peel away enough layers, and are honest with ourselves, that is really one of the key reasons that we find ourselves in the situations that we're in. It's not the case for everybody, and it's not the case for every situation. But for many people, that is a key factor. Now, in terms of not wasting the crisis, I know I'm all over the place, but follow me if you will. how do you not waste it, right? So we already said not panicking, okay, and finding a way to leverage it. There's one key question that you have to ask yourself, and the question is, what got you to this point? And and some of you will say, what do you mean what got me here? It was COVID. And that's not the whole story. It may be true that COVID played a role. Okay, I'm not going to argue that point, right? COVID is definitely a factor. But for most of us, it's not the only reason that got us here. Okay? Your relationship with whomever, right? We're talking about our relationship with ourselves, but let's just for a moment look at the relationships we have outside of ourselves, with our spouses, our loved ones, our partners. That relationship, right? That relationship is struggling. That relationship is on its last leg, not because of COVID. Trust me, it is not COVID that is, quote unquote, ruining your relationship. Okay, because if COVID is ruining your relationship, then that relationship was jacked up or on its last leg, or it was gonna face some challenges that it probably was not set up to handle down the line eventually. Let me just put it that way. Okay. COVID is just another, and I say just loosely, I understand, but this is one more thing that comes along to challenge our relationships, to challenge your motivation, your drive, your will, if you will. Okay, COVID, it's not the thing that got you to this point. The truth is, ignoring a lot of things may be what got you to this point. Making excuses is probably what got you to this point. Being over leveraged, okay, financially speaking, is what got you to this point. Or even over leveraged emotionally, okay? Perhaps in this relationship or in other things. Putting too much of what you don't have, right? Too much stock into something, and it was more than you ought to have invested, to borrow the metaphor. You know, like if you don't have any reserve just to sustain yourself, then why are you putting more into other people or another relationship or another situation? That is only setting things up for disaster. And the truth is, that is why many of us are in these really difficult situations, because we didn't have those hard conversations. Again, which reminds me of another episode where we talk about having these difficult conversations, because that is really the only way to get to these things that we are searching for, these more meaningful and more rewarding relationships in life. Okay? You're probably over leveraged. And so once you can accept that, then we can begin to change some things. And again, it doesn't happen immediately. It doesn't happen overnight. Okay? But this is an opportunity. It is. And perhaps you're sick of hearing it that way, but it is an opportunity. It's a chance to do some things that you've been wanting to do, right? I know a lot of people are worried, or they're panicked or in crisis because they lost their jobs. Their businesses have gone under. I understand that. Here in South Florida, we're also in the midst of hurricane season, and these storms cause a lot of trouble. So I know that, but when you take stock, right? There is such a thing as, maybe it's time for a change, right? Maybe the job that you lost, maybe you just needed a reason to leave. Maybe you wanted to leave, but you was just too scared. Okay. So why would you cry or worry or stress over a job that you didn't like anyways? Or coworkers that you didn't even want to see. You're not going to miss them. This is an opportunity to, some people say, rebuild, retool the relationship that is struggling. Okay, I'm talking about on its last leg. And I say this delicately. I'm not one to encourage people to end their relationships, but sometimes it's just enough is enough. Enough is enough. You know damn well you're hearing this and you're shaking your head like, I should have been gone. I should have been done gone. What are you waiting for? What is keeping you there? Right? This is what I'm saying. COVID, this crisis, this coronavirus, it's really making it impossible or hard. I know some people are capable of some miracles and some real interesting things, but it's making it very difficult for you to act like things are A-okay. All right? You're being forced to confront how it may be time to call it quits on whether it's your job or your relationship. And it may not even be that you feel you should have ended the relationship before. Perhaps you're realizing that this relationship is not one that can stand the rain. Right? We all want someone who can stand the rain. Right? We know, like Boyz II Men say, on the cloudy days or on the perfect days, everything's great. But can you stand the rain? And a lot of y'all is finding out that this couple that you're part of, this duo, this relationship that you're in, is not equipped to stand the rain, this rain at least. And you might say, yo, Jay, it's not a rain, it's a monsoon. Okay, it's a hurricane. All right. Okay, fine. Now you can hope that there's never rain or hurricanes, or you can prepare for rain, prepare for hurricane. Okay, I heard a quote once, I know I'm butchering it, but the one that's ready for rain is the one who carries an umbrella, something like that. You expect rain when you carry an umbrella. You know what I'm saying? If you're expecting it to rain, you're not going to leave your house without an umbrella or a poncho. Okay? So if you're in your relationship hoping it don't rain, then you are deeply and sorely mistaken. Okay? There's another episode I'm just remembering now where we talk about hope not being a plan, right? Hope is not a plan. Hope is never a plan. And you hear me? It's not a plan. It never was, never should be, and you can't live on hope. And so if you're realizing you're in a relationship that just can't stand the rain, why continue to invest? Why continue to put good after bad? This is what I'm talking about when I say wasting the crisis. Is it going to be hard? Yes. Will it be will it turn your world upside down? I'm sure of it. Okay? We're not talking about no easy stuff here. As I'm telling you this, I'm remembering my own challenges and my own difficulties. All right? But this is the time. You're already in a difficult spot, and you need to make some changes. You need to readjust. Why not now? Why not now? Okay? So listen, if it's just, I come across lots of people struggling, and, A lot of times you may not have been the reason for your struggle, but you are the reason for the continued struggle. And that's the piece that I struggle with. I get that people will make their own decisions, but when I see that really, really bums me out. Okay? You did not cause COVID, but there is no reason for you to continue to struggle in this season. You hear me? The crisis is here. Let's do our best to figure out a way to not waste it. Make some of these hard adjustments and seek to come out better on the other side. Well, guys, this is our show. This has been our show. Thank you for hearing. Thank you for humoring me. If you found value in this episode, I want to ask you to share it. I ask you to share it every episode, but you know your peoples. There are people who are in the midst of this crisis and need to make some changes. People who are wasting this crisis, and maybe it's even you who's wasting the crisis. Okay, I know these sound like altar calls, but forgive me. If you are the one wasting the crisis, really sit and think about what you're preparing yourself for post-COVID, because the fact is we're going to get out of this. We're not going to be here forever. Okay? COVID will leave us eventually. I can't tell you when. I can't tell you what we'll look like after. But you got to be preparing for post-COVID. All right? So if you found value, I'm going to ask you to just rate it and share it with a friend, because we all know people who can benefit from this. All right, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode. You can catch past episodes if you go to my website, mercierwellness.com. Thank you guys. I appreciate you, love you guys, and I will catch you on our next episode of Relationship Renegade. Take care of yourselves. Bye now.